Football! Let's go!
All right, folks, let's go. This is the AFC West, the toughest division in football, the one you're probably all excited for and probably get the most views out of this podcast, I believe. This is probably the hardest to make predictions for, just because it's such a tough division. But we've got some bold predictions that Chiefs fans will especially like, Broncos fans will truly hate, and everybody else in between will surely have something to say. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Add the comments below. Thank you guys for watching the podcast complete. And if you're just tuning in for the AFC West portion, not a problem. I completely understand. But please don't be afraid to check out the rest of it. Now, moving on, let's get into it big time. Let's start out with the Denver Broncos. They're going to finish last in the division, I believe, if this tally adds up right. They do have a pretty easy schedule going on. To start out the season, they're going to have a strong start, it looks like. The first game is at Seattle. They win that game. I don't think Pete Carroll can scheme up such bad quarterback play to beat Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. Then they get an easy win with the Houston Texans. But their first loss on the schedule is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers have enough with Trey Lance. We're excited to see them, young blood. And the Broncos aren't going to be such an electric team that the 49ers can't get past them. And it should be a good challenge for the Niners, but compared to their division talent, the Broncos will be a pretty light Sunday. Even though this will be a pretty close match, I believe it's going to be under a touchdown kind of a game. After that, they move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to lose at Las Vegas. The Raiders have a very established team. Derek Carr is probably still the better quarterback than Russell Wilson at this point in their careers. Wilson definitely had a better peak, but those days are behind him. And Derek Carr has more talent on his team than the Broncos do. After that, they lose to the Indianapolis Colts, and they're not liking this feeling because now that's 3 straight losses. And then they play the Los Angeles Chargers, and they have a 4th loss there. I don't think they're going to be very strong in this very tough division, especially with Russell Wilson. The line's not good enough. And the talent of the wide receiver talent for Russell Wilson is not on the level that it was in Seattle. And that drop-off in talent around him is going to be a drop-off in production. The Chargers win that game. But they get back on track because their schedule is easy with wins versus Jacksonville and the Jets. I'm sorry, I had that the order backwards. It's the Jets and then the Jacksonville. A couple back-to-back wins with a bye to get them back on track. And then they play the tough Tennessee Titans, and I think the Titans win that game, giving the Broncos another loss. And then the Raiders play the Broncos again, but this time it is in Denver. And I think maybe the Broncos have enough chemistry built up that they split the series with the Raiders and making it tough on the Raiders to have a good year. And they actually beat the second game with the Raiders. I know you Broncos fans are going to be excited that I gave you guys at least the split. And I'm sorry, Raiders fan, you're still dealing with Derek Carr. And Russell Wilson probably have enough chemistry going at that point in the season to have enough to beat you. After that, they lose to the Carolina Panthers, Kansas City, to Baltimore, and Kansas City Chiefs. That's 3 straight losses again. And then they lose to the Arizona Cardinals, the Los Angeles Rams, Kansas City, and the LA Chargers. Now, if my math is correct, that's 11 losses on the season. That's going to give them a 6-11 year. They might squeak out a 1 or 2 somewhere in there. It's not going to be against Kansas City, probably not against the Rams or the Cardinals, maybe against the Panthers or the Chargers even. That could be a real upset. But expect them to easily be in that 6-11, 8-9 kind of season for the Denver Broncos. And that's going to be a real disappointment for Broncos fans because they're expecting playoffs. Truly, with the addition of Russell Wilson, but the team around Russell Wilson isn't the team that was around Peyton Manning when he came. And that's the part that Denver Broncos fans are forgetting. They keep thinking they were just a quarterback away, and they're going to learn that they paid wide receiver talent too early, that wasn't proven too much money. Russell Wilson's not Captain Save-A-Ho that's going to magically carry this team much further than Drew Lock did last season for him. Now, moving on next, we're actually going to move to the Las Vegas Raiders, and I believe they'll probably finish second in the division again this year. Looking at their schedule, they start out with the Los Angeles Chargers. In LA, they win their opening game against the Chargers. I believe they'll end up splitting this series, but the Raiders have a lot of firepower, and it's a little bit more than what Herbert has. Herbert has great talent around him, but he's not going to beat Derek Carr in the opening game. After the Chargers, they go to Arizona. I'm going to give them a loss in that game. They're going to they're going to beat the Tennessee Titans, I believe. They'll pull that game off. I think they have enough firepower too. And then they have a loss or a win against Denver, and a loss at Kansas City, an early bye that doesn't really help the Raiders. I'm sure they could appreciate a little later bye for them. They get another easy win at the Texans and the Saints in Jacksonville. Then they get a loss to the Colts. And I'm going to say they lose the second game to the Broncos in Denver late in the season. I don't think I think they just split that game or a split on the season. Then they play the LA Chargers. I think they have enough to beat the Chargers. Then they lose to the LA Rams. LA's got a tough team. Maybe Matt Stafford's arm's not going to be good enough, and this could be a early season offset to actually pick the Raiders over the Rams. But we're going to be a homer for the Chiefs and pick the Rams to win this game. After that, they move on to after the Rams, they move on to the Patriots. I believe they have enough to beat the Patriots. They are going to lose a late game, or they're going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers late. I'm not going to make that bold of an assumption that the Steelers are going to be that team. But it would be cooler if they were, in my opinion. And then they're going to lose to the San Francisco 49ers and to the Kansas City Chiefs. That puts them at 10-7 on the season. And I think that's going to make them have a feel-good season, like it's a good, strong. But you got to be slightly disappointed if you go back to missing the playoffs like the Raiders do every season. They get real fluky when Derek Carr actually makes the playoffs, and then you see what he actually does in the playoffs. So moving next, let's move to a lot of people's favorite team is the LA Chargers, formerly San Diego. Unfortunately, they moved. Big shout out to my old battle buddy. He's a big Chargers fan, and I hope he watches this and hears this and knows that I hated losing to you anytime, every time. And luckily, the Chiefs have been on a long winning streak. And with Justin Herbert, that's always going to be a question now. It's going to be a back and forth, and I don't appreciate it because it was a weird message to congratulate you on your win. All right, moving into the Chargers season, they're going to open it up and lose to the Raiders and Kansas City. So that's back-to-back, unbelievable failed start for the Chargers, and this is going to hurt them later on in the season. But then they get easy wins with Jacksonville Jaguars, the Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns team with no Deshaun Watson, Denver Broncos. I think they're going to win that game, win Seattle, and going into their bye week, they're going to feel real good because they're getting back on track. They only have 2 losses. And then they're going to play Atlanta, coming off a bye. It's a waste of a bye for them, unfortunately, for the Chargers fans. They get an easy win coming off the bye with the Falcons. They're going to play the San Francisco 49ers, and this will be an interesting game. I believe Justin Herbert beats Trey Lance, even if he's having a great rookie year. The Chargers, I think, just have a slightly better team than the Niners. And I hate to say it for all the Niners fans and the Niners are always competitive every year, or at least the last few. After that, after the Niners, they have another loss. They get swept by Kansas City. That's 3 losses for them, and they lose to Arizona. It's not making them feel good here, and then they get another loss to the Raiders. I'm not actually, I think they beat the Raiders the second time. I think that's what I picked the other video. And if not, I don't like the Raiders or the Chargers. So if I got it wrong, I don't even actually care. That tells you how I feel about those teams. After that, they have a tough loss to Miami. And then a win against the Tennessee Titans, but a loss against the Colts. And that's going to be the thing that really hurts this team. And a loss against the Rams. And then they finish on a high note and beat the Broncos. I believe that puts them at 8 losses on the season, so a 9-8 team. And that's exactly about what I would expect for the Chargers to do again. For some reason, it's just always an underperforming team. But going to be tough games and tough opponents for everybody they face. And that's why everybody always likes to make the dark horse pick of the Chargers every season. And we know how well that turns out. They never even make the playoffs. So I apologize, Chargers fans, for the bad news. But it's another season of not making the playoffs and dumb coaching moves. And now it's time for the final team from the AFC and everybody's favorite, Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome to the bandwagon if you haven't joined yet. I'm actually a very long time, pretty much my whole childhood, first team I ever rooted for, a Chiefs fan. So you're going to love these picks because there's a homer in me that's making sure we win the AFC West, and it's actually a real popular mixed opinion around the league that Kansas City Chiefs are still that team until shown otherwise. And as someone that lived in the Show Me State for decades, it's the Show Me State for a reason. And until Kansas City gets knocked off, I think it's extremely disrespectful, actually, to pick otherwise. So let's get into it. Let's open up the season. First game's at the Arizona Cardinals. It's a backbreaker for the Cardinals. They wish they didn't pay Kyler Murray when they see Pat Mahomes, what a well-paid quarterback actually looks like. Expect Pat Mahomes to study for this game, unlike somebody. But even if Kyler Murray did study, there's not a lot he can actually look at. This is a new Chiefs team. There's the defense, with Spags might be a little easier to predict for Kyler Murray. But for the Arizona Cardinals defense, there's too much going too many different places. And I don't think Kyler Murray's the guy to go toe-to-toe every series with Pat Mahomes. After the Cardinals, they get a win versus the LA Chargers. That's a home game for the Chiefs. Arrowhead is always extremely loud. Sorry for messing up the video. My cheat sheet had fell over here. It's a great way to put a cherry on this podcast, right? It is our first one, so please be a little patient with the errors and any crazy noises and whatnot you hear. But getting back into it, the Chiefs beat the Chargers. They beat the Colts. It's too early for Matt Ryan to have such a chemistry to pull off an upset here, in my opinion. And then after the Colts, they play Tampa Bay. Tom Brady is always a tough guy to go toe-to-toe with, but it's a regular season game, and I like Pat Mahomes at this point in our careers to beat Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. It should be a fun game to watch. Most of these games are going to be must-see TV, and the national coverage will back up my homerism, if you will. After Tampa Bay, they play the Raiders. They'll sweep the division this year, so they're going to beat the Raiders. And then we get our first loss of the year. I hate to admit it as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but I think the Bills have a very stacked team. They're going to have more to prove in the regular season trying to play Kansas City than the Bills will. But it is a home team, home game, so Bills fans don't get too excited. Kansas City could definitely win this game. Pat Mahomes and Allen are always legendary games, all-time great games. So I'm looking forward to this game, and it's the only one that has me kind of nervous in the schedule, really, just because it's always that tough of a game. And then they're going to play the 49ers. Pat Mahomes has enough experience to get past Trey Lance. Could be a very fun shootout kind of game, but I don't think there's enough weapons. Travis Kelce's the better tight end over Kittle. Debo's the better wide receiver than anybody Kansas City has, but Kansas City has more talent on the roster to overcome that one individual, and it's a little easier to shut down the one guy, especially with just Kittle being another option. But it's always a tough team. So moving on, we get a bye week after that. And I think it's kind of a nice bye for Kansas City because we get the Tennessee Titans, and that's a Derrick Henry run game, always tough for the Chiefs to stop. So it's nice to have a bye week before the Titans, secures the victory. Andy Reid just doesn't lose off a bye. He rolls out of bed when it's bye weeks. It's just what he does. Then we have a nice, easy game with Jacksonville. Jacksonville has no chance against Kansas City. The Los Angeles Rams, last year I would have picked them to beat this Kansas City team, but this season Rams team is not going to have what it takes to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The Matt Stafford's arm's still a question, not enough wide receiver talent. Kansas City has a nice big win over the Rams. Should be a fun another game. And then Cincinnati, Cincinnati. Pat Mahomes finally gets his win here. Joe Burrow's is a tough guy, lots of talent, stacked team from Cincinnati. This will be a shootout. Wouldn't even be surprised if it's an overtime game. This is a one-touchdown possession game without a question, maybe even a field goal or less. And again, like I said, possibly even overtime. I'm excited for it, just as everybody in the NFL should be, just to watch this one game. Then they play Russell Wilson late in the year. In Denver. They're going to win that game. Russell Wilson and Pat Mahomes is always fun to watch, but the talent on the Broncos is not superior to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City probably has a more developed roster, much better offensive line. It's going to be interesting to see Kansas City get their run game going. These Broncos should be pretty successful there, and that's always a dangerous threat, especially with Russell Wilson. But expect Kansas City to get that win here. And then they play the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Raiders to finish out the season. That puts them in an easy 15 or 16-1, 15-2 kind of season, fighting hard every week in and out to try to get that number one seed. Kansas City could pull it off, continue to host another AFC Championship game like Pat Mahomes does every year of his career. Again, guys, this is Bold Predictions here. Excited to have our first podcast in the book. Next week, we will be bringing you the NFC teams, and we're excited to do that. And hopefully you guys tune in and follow along for that conversation. Each division will be broken down, and each video will be available. So look forward to those if you will for me. And remember, give me a thumbs up or like or subscribe or however you're following me on YouTube, Rumble, or on Substack. We're everywhere, and we'll keep expanding as time goes along. And we look forward to our early supporters and the ones that catch this later on down the road. Either way, please leave a comment or just interact somehow. Thank you guys for your patience. And again, sorry for any bad video or audio quality. We'll get all the kinks worked out as time goes along. Thank you guys for your time.
Woo! Football! Let's go!